easier for men to lose weight. I think there was like a commercial where it's like the guy, all he did was like take out soda and got like super skinny, and then the wife like took out soda and she didn't lose a pound. I mean, there's a reason for that, because women have, you know, hormones that causes, you know, different distribution of weight, and that's another completely different topic. But what we are taught in society is that calories in minus calories out equals weight loss, and that's just not true. It's more complicated than that. And, you know, stress, I see in a lot of my clients, is like the number one factor is stress. Is stress, and diet causes stress. So that's another reason why diets don't work. Okay. So number one, the reason why diets don't work is because they're just too restrictive and not sustainable. So a bunch of you had already put that in, that that's what you think of diets, is that it causes deprivation and it makes you feel too restrictive. So when you completely omit food groups, it's very difficult to sustain. You can't keep it up. It's not a lifestyle thing. And this is why, you know, if you have done keto and you were successful with that, I give you applause for that. But for most people, majority of the population, that isn't something that you can sustain for a long period of time, because you're completely omitting carbohydrates. The same thing goes with like people who choose to do to be a vegetarian or a vegan just solely for thinking it's a healthier option. So I know a lot of people that do that for ethical reasons, and I completely support that. I actually myself eat kind of a hybrid. I don't eat as much animal products as much as I do, but the people who think that they need to cut those animal products out just because they think it's healthier and they miss that and they feel deprived, it's not really a sustainable diet for that. Because what happens is that when you have that deprivation, you're having that mentally, but also biologically. So restriction only makes your cravings worse. So we have this diet cycle here, this nice picture here, and this is what a typical person feels like mentally when they go on a diet. So you start a diet, so you already put these group of foods you end up doing it. It makes it, you want to do it even more. Or if you're a parent and you have children, how many times have you told your kids to not do something and they do it, and they want to do it now just because you said not to do it? So it's that same mind game that you're giving yourself when you're saying you can't have these sweets, you can't have this dessert, you can't have this junk food. It makes you want to have it more as far as craving. So what happens is that you end up having those horrible cravings, you end up giving in, and then you end up overeating, or even maybe binging at some point, because you felt like, well, I already am here, I might as well just go throw in the towel and kind of give up. And then usually that results in feeling guilty, or giving yourself that negative self-talk, again, saying like, well, I should try harder next time, or I should have more willpower, or, you know, just those negative self-talk that we can kind of, you know, that you can kind of think of. And that just goes back to the diet again. So then you say, I'm going to try harder tomorrow, or I'm going to over-restrict, or I'm going to punish myself, or whatnot. And that creates that horrible diet cycle. So biologically, what can happen when you go under a diet is it actually decreases your metabolism, and it makes hormonal imbalances worse. So your metabolism slows down with diet because it's an evolutionary mechanism. So when we were, let's say, you know, back in the day on cavemen, and food was just not available as a resource, or it was scarce, it's our body's way of kind of like going into this starvation mode, where it's going to lower your metabolism so it doesn't need that as many calories. So when you're restricting yourself biologically, what happens if you're under eating or you're not eating enough calories, then your metabolism is going to slow down to compensate. And so then you're going to get a slowed rate of weight loss. And then this is another reason why when people start eating normally again, they end up gaining more weight. Another thing that can happen is that your hunger hormones, they go out of balance. So you have two hunger hormones that come into play here. You have ghrelin, which is the hormone that is released that makes you feel hungry. And then you have leptin, which is the hormone that is released that says when you are satisfied, when you are full, and that you should stop. So the weird thing about dieting is when you start restricting, what happens is that they inversely they flip. So basically you have increased ghrelin, making you more hungry, and then you have a lowered amount of leptin, meaning that you're not satisfied anymore when you should be. I see that there's like a couple things popping up. I just want to check to make sure you guys don't have any questions about what I have said so far. Okay, so as I said at the previous slide, that diet cycle or feeling deprived is, or cutting out complete food groups. So for example, taking out carbohydrates in keto, you know, believe it or not, our brain feeds off glucose. So we need carbs, especially women. And when we cut those carbs way too low, that's going to be sensed as a threat. That's going to be sensed as a stress for a long period of time. So whenever we have that stress, we're going to have an increase in cortisol. And if you know anything about cortisol, that is the hormone that gives you that belly fat that we all don't want. Diets also cause us to feel tired, specifically if you're not eating enough. This is like the thing I see all the time with women when I'm working with them in the beginning, is they're eating 1,000, 1,200 calories and they can't keep it up and they feel tired through the day. And I said, no wonder you're not, you know, you don't have enough gas in your car. You're not putting enough calories in your body. So that's why you feel tired. That's why you feel moody. That's why when you do keto, you want to, like all you want to do is eat bread and, you know, you want to bite somebody's head off just for some pasta or something like that. But what really happens also, you know, every time we fail these diets is we have more stress and then we have a loss of self-esteem. Like I said, because we feel badly about ourselves that we can't maintain that. So to break the diet cycle, like I said, we're going to reject the diet mentality, but I want you to also have an open mind to make peace with food. So by making peace with food, that means we're going to start getting rid of these ideas of good and bad food. So I also have a lot of people, a lot of clients that they say, oh, I behaved really well this weekend, or I did really bad. And it's like, no, there's no good or bad foods anymore. Everything's on an even playing field, okay? Everything is equal. We are going to eat foods that nourish our body, that makes us feel good. But at the same sense, we're going to want to eat foods that make us feel good as far as taste, that we enjoy. And so there has to be that proper balance. So if you're going to eat something that is, quote, unhealthier and not as nourishing, let's say like a dessert, for example, you are allowed to eat that, but you're not going to eat it with penance or punishment, meaning as you're going to allow yourself to have that dessert, enjoy the dessert, but you're not going to say, well, tomorrow I'm going to eat less calories, or tomorrow I'm going to skip breakfast, and then I'm going to do a double exercise to work it off. So that's another mindset thing that, you know, I would love for you guys to take away with that. And then not to use food or alcohol as a reward. So a lot of times I also see people say, well, I deserve this because I exercised every day this week. Or they have these cheat meals where they have on the weekend. And I hate that phrase, having a cheat meal. So I don't know who you're cheating on. You can only cheat on in relationships. You cannot cheat on yourself as far as food. Everything is equal. Questions, let me see. Okay, just little comments, no comments. All right, no questions so far. Okay, great. I hope a lot of this is resonating with you. Is any of this resonating with you? I know that this is very universal. I know I work a lot with women, but I know that this also resonates with a lot of men as well. But mainly I want you to just start listening to your body and giving it what it needs. Okay, so let's move on to the power of habit, because this is where we start to look at how to create healthier habits and how to do this in a routine. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is from the book, The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and in Business by Charles Duhigg. So I really recommend this book. It's very, very interesting all around. It has to do with, you know, changing your habits as far as health, but it also has a lot to do with business as well. And he talks about here the habit loop, which is a neurological pattern that governs patterns and habits. So there's three components of the habit loop. There's the cue, which I also like to call the trigger, which is usually like an event or even an emotion that we feel that begins a particular habit or routine. So then we have the routine, and then we have the reward, which is usually it's usually a feeling or an emotion that is felt, or something that happens after the routine or the habit is completed. So in an example of the cue, routine, reward, habit loop, they used in the book the development of the product Febreze. So if you're familiar with Febreze, it's a spray that takes away odors out of like rugs and materials and stuff like that. And so they were talking about when they were developing Febreze and they were testing out their product. Initially, Febreze did not have a scent. It was scentless. So they were giving out the Febreze to various households, and then they asked for their feedback on how they liked the product. And the majority of the people said, I like the product, it works, it takes away the smell from, my furniture. However, I keep forgetting to use it. And so they wanted to look into the habits of people and what would be the reason why they're not using the Febreze. And so they went back and they took a look at that habit loop. So to use the Febreze, what they were saying is that the cue or the trigger is the smell of like a musty smell or a nasty smell that they wanted to get rid of. The routine that they wanted to implement in the people to use the product was the actual using the Febreze. And then the reward would be the fact that it wouldn't smell anymore or something like that. And so what they found missing with the feedback of the people who were using them in the testing was that they weren't getting that reward that they wanted, which would be maybe an actual smell. And so that is when they decided to add a fresh scent that we know of Febreze right now to the product, because that would give them that trigger of a nice fresh smell to be like it was complete, like the task was done. And so that was why they ended up adding that, so that people would be reminded with that end reward. So basically what we're trying to do here, the golden rule when you want to try to change a habit, is that your trigger and your cue and your reward is always going to be the same no matter what. So when you want to break a habit, let's say you want to quit smoking or you want to quit mindless snacking, the cue and the trigger is going to stay the same, and the way you feel or the outcome of that is going to stay the same. The only thing that changes is the actual routine or the habit. So let's say waking up in the morning, or brushing your teeth, for example, would be another good example. So in this particular instance, the trigger or the cue is like having that morning breath or having, dirty teeth. The routine would be brushing your teeth, and then the reward would be having a minty or having a clean mouth at the end. So that is the habit that we are ingrained. Another example would be maybe I get a lot of people who say I have a hard time, snacking or wanting to open a bottle of wine when I get home from work. So if this is something that you want to stop doing, it's not just stop snacking or not opening up the bottle of wine. You have to figure out what your trigger or your cue is. So in this particular instance, it would be getting home, and maybe what your emotional trigger would be feeling stressed. So what is your routine? You tend to go to the pantry, or you open a bottle of wine to feel a certain way. And what would be that reward after doing that? Feeling comfort, feeling calm, feeling de-stressed. So the way that you would do that is you have to replace it with something else. So what else can you do other than eating mindlessly or drinking a bottle of wine that would give you that calm? So that could be going out for a walk, or that could be doing some meditation, doing some yoga, reading a book, doing something that calms or de-stresses you. So the key about changing your habits is it's not about perfection. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's not about perfection. It's about being consistent. So the more that you practice your habit, the more automatic it gets. So there's this thing that says 21 days to make a habit, and that was actually made up. That is a whole statistic. It's more like 3 months. So it's not 3 weeks, it's more like 3 months. So you have to be consistent with it. And that doesn't mean that you have to be perfect every single day. It just means that you just have to keep practicing it, and then it will become automatic. So majority of what we do on a daily basis is automatic. it's like 80%, I believe. And that's the way that our brain stores information just to be more efficient. So it's like going on autopilot. So like a perfect example of this, how many of you ever got into your car after work, went home, and then got home and realized, how did I even get here? I don't even remember really driving. It's because your brain basically stores those patterns. So it remembers the directions and all of those things, and how to drive is just completely automatic in your brain. I know that's a scary thing, but like that's happened to me a couple of times where I'm like, I don't really remember driving here, but you do because it's stored there. So that is just another perfect example of how awesome the brain is, and that's why it is so hard to kind of change these habits. The other thing about changing your habits is that you want to preserve your autonomy. So these have to be things that you want to change, not somebody else wants to change. And going back to what I was saying earlier about that rebel teenager, about being told what to do, you know, we want to preserve our autonomy. We want to do what we want to do. So this has to be something that you want to change, not somebody else that wants to change. So the 5-step process for the power of habit, just to kind of recap, and this is all going to be on the Avarkin blog. And I would love for you guys to actually put in the chat box right now, maybe one habit you guys would want to change or that you want to break. So the first step is just to identify that habit. What do you want to change, or what kind of pattern do you want to break? And you want to identify that cue or trigger, like we talked about, like what kind of emotion are you feeling? So identify that emotion, and then identify a new action that you will take instead. And then the last and most importantly one is you want to, what is called, affirm your empowering truth. So basically that is a statement that you would say to yourself when you are, you know, maybe posted with a challenge, that you would say to yourself to kind of align yourself. So an example would be if you wanted to cut down on desserts or sweets in your home, you would identify that as your habit that you want to change. You're going to identify the cue or trigger. So maybe that would be, again, maybe you feel a little bit stressed, and that's when you go to reach for the dessert. You want to identify that emotion, which is the stress, and then identify the new action that you want to take. So maybe that will be, I will choose some fruit instead, or I'll go out for a walk, or whatnot. And then your empowering truth for this particular example would be maybe when I'm presented with dessert and I feel like I deserve to indulge, because remember, foods are on the same playing field. We are allowed to have, you know, whatever we want. I will take 2 deep breaths or take a couple of minutes to think about it. And if I still want it, I will allow myself to have it. I will enjoy it and then stop because I'm in control. So that is a perfect example of an empowering truth. Let me see what you guys have here in the chat. So some habits you guys want to change: consuming less bread products, let's see, just improving more vegetables, eating less sweets. Yeah, a lot of less sweets. So again, you know, it is part of a mindset issue. So a lot of times when we crave sweets, it's because we put them on this naughty list of things we're not allowed to have. So we want to have them more. I'm not going to get too much into that particular thing because that is a huge portion of emotional eating, which I don't know if we're going to be able to get to in another time. So that pretty much wraps up the presentation for now. I do want to say that all of the key points of this presentation is going to be on the Avarkin blog. So I would love for you guys to go there and post one habit that you want to change, and then one new action that you will take instead. So when you actually write down what you want, or you write down your goals, it's one step closer to actually taking action. So it's a big difference than when you think about it in your brain than you actually physically write it down. And by doing this and posting on the blog as well, you're going to be, you know, you're going to put it out there for all of us. So you're going to be held accountable for that. And then I also want you to comment under today's point what your biggest takeaway or your biggest aha moment is. So an aha moment for me is just something that you think that, you know, was really triggering for you, or maybe that was just really helpful. So I'd love to know that. And last but not least, like I said, if you guys have any questions, you can definitely email me at drjess@mindbodyevolution. I also hang out a lot on Instagram. I do have a Facebook page, but I hang out a lot on Instagram. I'm constantly posting a lot of helpful information, and I'm always doing live trainings as well. So that's another resource if you're interested in learning more about what I do. So that's everything right now. Do you guys have any questions to finish up?
While we wait for questions, I want to give a big thank you to you, Jessica, for joining us and sharing this valuable information. I'm pretty sure that Americans will enjoy this content and will go to the our Americans blog and share with us their you know what they want to work on. And I'm gonna be happy to share that content with you as well.